What if I told you that Gooseworks, the creator of the Amazing Digital Circus, has been working on a new exciting project where a bunch of elemental sprites have to scramble and fight in order to prevent the apocalypse from happening at the end of 1999? Before we get to that point, let's rewind for a bit and I'll try my best to explain what this is all about, based on the information that's available right now. It's no secret that Y2K aesthetics are trendy at the moment, and this idea feels like the perfect follow-up after TADC inevitably ends, which itself is a series that is heavily inspired by 90s nostalgia and early wave 3D models and animations from that era. When it comes to this mystery Y2K project, things started in the first half of 2023 when Gooseworks posted some random character concepts on her social media profiles. I'll be focusing on this guy, who was known as Mr. Y2K at the time. He has a really fun design where his body seems to be comprised of a permanent TV static effect, which probably looks something like this when animated. On DeviantArt, he was described as a being created from the collective consciousness of everyone who watched television in 1999. The next big update happened in late 2024, when Gooseworks teased that she was brainstorming a new Y2K-inspired story. Initially, two new characters were revealed, an office lady that has paper elemental sprite powers, and she apparently has to team up with a mailbox twink in order to save the world from the rebirth of Mr. 1999. A few days later, a full color sheet with even more characters was posted online. Here, we also found out that things take place in the year 1999, before the end of the world. On the left side, we also see a familiar face again, but we'll get to him later. Not too long afterwards, Gooseworks posted an even bigger character sheet, and this time it had speech bubbles too. We eventually got a color version as well, and on top of that, a bunch of short teasers and snippets of info were being posted about the characters themselves. Here's what else we know so far. I'll start with the mailbox boy on the left. His design is reminiscent of the character Enna from JoelG, which by extension was inspired by old Picasso paintings. His official title is Mr. Mailbox, but most people call him Pen Pal. He's the mailbox sprite and is described as a loyal soldier of Mr. Time. Also, he's always wanted to work with a paper sprite because he thinks they'd be able to do lots of cool team moves together. His dialogue shows his unwavering loyalty towards his boss, since he's seemingly prepared to do anything that is asked of him. Next, let's move on to our unassuming office worker. I don't think her name has been revealed yet, but we do know that she's the paper sprite, plus she's an aspiring writer as well. More interestingly, when her powers are activated, she seems to be quite literally made out of paper, with the ability to expand and morph her limbs on a whim, and her pigmentation vanishes. I assume the biggest inspiration for her concept must have been the Paper Mario series. If we move to the middle of the sheet, we have someone else who also seems to work in an office setting. Her name is Lydia Pyrite. She's described as an evil black market soul trader, and she's the bearer of the Scissors sprite. When she uses her powers, her color scheme changes and, more importantly, she transforms into a cool scissor lady. This obviously reminds me of Ryuko and Nui from Kill la Kill, who both use scissor blades to fight. Next up we have Mr. Time himself. He seems to be the big boss of the series, literally. I adore his design, and he looks like he could straight up be cousins with Death himself from the Soul Eater manga. He seems to operate on day and night cycles, and his faceplates change when the shift happens, which makes me wonder if he has two different personalities depending on the time of day. His dialogue seems to be a briefing of some sort, where he probably tells the main cast what their mission is. He wants them to get rid of his son, who is supposedly meant to only live for 1 year, and it looks like something really bad is going to happen if he survives beyond that point. Who is this son exactly? Well, it's Mr. 1999, who was the first character that got revealed for the series. One thing that I found noteworthy is how his initial name changed from Mr. Y2K to Mr. 1999. He is described as a beautiful little accidental extinction entity, and he is the 1999 sprite. Here's another interesting detail. This rather cryptic image was released of what I assume is Mr. 1999 when things go wrong. Remember how it was teased that the goal is to stop Mr. 1999 from being reborn? Is this what happens when he is actually reincarnated? Obviously, this is heavily inspired by the End of Evangelion movie. Other characters were also revealed, but we don't know that much about them. First off, we have this handsome office lad. His name is unknown, and this is the only pic we have of him. Next up, we have the scene sprite. I'm not sure if these are meant to be two separate characters, but I think the concept is iconic either way. There's also the devil sprite, and realistically speaking, he's up to no good. Another detail that caught my attention is how Gooseworks insists on saying the characters are the bearers of their sprite. sprites. What I'm trying to get at here is how the power system kind of reminds me of how things work in One Piece with the Devil Fruits, and Gooseworks is a known fan of the series. The main inspiration for the series is obviously the Y2K scare that happened around 25 years ago. Long story short, at the turn of the millennium, people were worried that the computer technology from the time would glitch out due to the way that calendar data used to be stored on devices. Since the world is still here, obviously nothing that bad really happened, but some nations invested heavily to upgrade and update their equipment to avoid any further complications. Here's an example of an electronic sign incorrectly displaying the year as 1900 rather than 2000. Maybe Gooseworks' idea plays around with this exact concept. A huge time paradox would be created if time went all the way back to 1900, and Mr. 1999 will somehow trigger that apocalyptic outcome if he's reborn. This would be why Mr. Time wants his employees to stop his son at all costs. Something that I do find peculiar is how the powers of the characters are called sprites. This could be interpreted as a fantasy element. Or is it suggesting that there's a digital component to the characters themselves? You know, like video game sprites, which are 2D bitmaps that usually represent things like in-game objects or playable characters. This is a quick theory, but what if the characters are actually background office workers that have the duty to make sure stuff like computers and the internet function properly? For example, Mr. Mail could be in charge of the worldwide email system, and Lydia's powers may represent the cut functionality on computers or something like that. What if the apocalypse itself will be represented by the digital realm somehow overlapping with the real one? Or maybe this is going to be a straightforward action series that's heavily inspired by battle shonen manga from the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, stuff like One Piece, Shaman King, and Soul Eater, which just so happen to be some of my all-time personal favorites. On an aesthetic level, this is obviously gonna take inspiration from whatever was trendy during the peak of the Y2K era. Gooseworks even posted a clean version of this background, and it has a distinctive Frutiger era vibe to it. Now, it's important to note that so far this is just a concept in its earliest stages. Gooseworks has put a lot of thought into the idea and is obviously heavily invested in these characters and their story. Worst case scenario, this never materializes, but in my humble opinion, with the colossal success of TADC, I think Gooseworks will have the leeway to make her next project manifest itself in whatever format she sees fit. Here's the last update we got on this idea. A fan asked if she plans on doing anything with her Y2K story, and her answer was, maybe someday. This is completely fair since TADC has only released 4 out of its 9 episodes so far. It's gonna take a while for the show to conclude, but after it ends, I'd imagine Gooseworks is going to explore what the most viable option would be to make the Y2K story into a reality. Since she's already had the chance to be the creator and showrunner of a CG animated series, my bet is that she also wants to showcase her talents in a 2D animated format as well. It should be noted how Glitch Studios recently opened up a new department that specializes in 2D animation, so the options for a new collaboration are definitely there. There's a lot of possibilities, but I'll end my speculation here since it's too early to jump to any conclusions. So, what do you guys think? Are you invested in this idea already? I most definitely am, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this becomes something special one day.